Hi everyone, welcome to ShreddedGrace episode 1. The title of this episode is You Didn't Die. What now? Now, I wanted to go with the less incendiary but equally true, you lived. Now what do you do? But my focus group voted loudly that A, I had to look at the camera, I couldn't do the looking down thing. And B, I really needed to go with the phrase, you didn't die. And in the end, I agreed with them on the phrase because, well, it's definitely an authentic kind of example of survivor think. Yeah, you didn't. There used to be a pep talk I used to give myself, like maybe in the first year or two, like, just don't die, just don't die, just don't die, like during the next 5 minutes during this procedure, or like just during the night because I was having trouble breathing, And I'm not the only one out there. It's like all you got to do is just not die. And so yeah, it's an authentic sort of kind of expression. Also, I realized it's a quote from my dear mommy. So maybe a few weeks after we had flown from the Portland area to outside of DC, where my parents live, and they brought me home after inpatient. I was trying to walk, and after a really bad failed walking attempt, because that plane ride really took it out of me, I just sat in my wheelchair and I cried and cried, and I said it would have been better if I had died. And my mom just said to me, she said, "Well, you didn't die." And the implication was, well, what are you going to do about it? So if you did not die and you're wondering what to do next, this book is for you. It's a survivorship 101 sort of kind of book. It's really a handbook, and I'm talking about the book that's on Amazon.com. These episodes I'm going to do probably every couple of weeks or every week, I'm not sure yet, are going to be, the YouTube versions. And we're really just going to explain some of the nitty gritty of survivorship and do some more like kind of attitude, kind of explaining successful behaviors of survivorship. So yeah, if you didn't die and you're wondering what to do next, this book is for you, but it's actually specifically for my friend Marlene because she survived twice and there's a whole lot of living left to do. Now, what I mean by she survived twice is that she actually had two surgeries. She had a cavernous malformation on her brainstem. That's like this raspberry shaped thing. It's very bad. Anyway, nobody knew it was there until she was 4 months pregnant, and then she had to bleed. She bled, but at home. But thankfully, her husband Stephen was at home too, so he got her to the hospital. But the local surgeon would decline to operate on a pregnant woman. And so, because Marlene didn't die right then and there, it was just deemed inoperable. So, her only alternative was to do rehab for 3 weeks, which she did. Sadly, they found out later because her mom noticed some worsening physical symptoms. They did another MRI and they realized that she had been bleeding the entire 3 weeks. So, yeah, that's. I don't really have any words for that. Anyway, during that time, her family, thank you family, researched options for her, and she eventually flew to the Barrow Clinic in Arizona to get surgery there. So they did the surgery, and she went into labor the day after, but they were able to delay labor until almost full term, and at which point Stephen and Marlene welcomed their son Nolan. So we're so thankful for that. But however, I mean, this is like huge because this is her first time being a mom, and she's like, all disabled now. So she's like, how do we figure this out? Thankfully, she was able to live with her mother for the first year. But still, I mean, think about it. Well, here's a good example. She told me a story about, well, how to care for an infant if you have mobility problems. So she was able to stand up better this first time around than she is now. And she told me with, zero trace of self-pity and just superb matter-of-factness that the rule is, well, if you're going to transport the child in a stroller, that's good. You put the kid in the stroller, you wheel it around from point A to B. But if you lose your balance, the rule is hands off. Hands off that stroller, because if you fall, go ahead and fall, but that kid is going to be safe. You don't touch the stroller. So yeah, she told me that this is the kind of rules that we make up in our head for other people's safety. I mean, in her case, it was her child. Of course, she's going to keep the child safe. And it makes sense that in order to care for Nolan in a more safe way, she chose to sit in a wheelchair more often than not. So it came to pass that over the next 4 years, she kept on having like these little mini bleeds and TIAs, or I'm not sure what to call them. The problem was that her CVA had been stuck up in the brainstem, like so stuck up in the brainstem, they couldn't get it the whole thing the first time. So that's why it kept on giving problems. But eventually they told her, you're going to keep on losing functionality as you stroke out every year until you have nothing left to lose, unless we go in again. So she seriously had to make the decision to go in for another surgery. That happened in January 2014. And then she lost it all again. And then she spent like a month just laying there looking at the ceiling, because people who have experience with this will know that that's not uncommon. Sometimes all you can do is look at the ceiling, but then the ceiling's moving too much and doing weird things, so then you have to close your eyes. Basically, you're just so horribly uncomfortable the whole time. So yeah, she got a second surgery and she lost it all again. So now she is in the position where she is thinking to herself, well, what's next? Do I just accept wheelchair life, or do I try for something more? And we've been corresponding for, well, she first found me in 2013 on Pinterest. But anyway, we corresponded on and off, but more so in the last year. And she asked me a really big question. She asked me, what is necessary for recovery? And I thought about it. I wrote her an email at the time, but I thought about it and I was like, this question merits a longer answer. So the book and the podcast and these videos, these are all the long episodic answer to that question. So the book is available on Amazon.com, and my writing is always nonprofit. You're just going to search Ann T. Ning Tan. And I think this is the 5th volume. It's called Learning How to Reach. It's volume 5 in the Learning How series. And again, Learning How books are always nonprofit, and I appreciate your support. You can find a lot of content at ShreddedGrace.com. Click on media, and then you'll find like pictures and videos and like links to the podcast and my blog. You can also find the videos at youtube.com, and also the podcast is available in the iTunes store and at podbean.com, and it's called the Shredded Grace podcast. And on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, you can follow me at Shredded Grace. So the book itself, I corralled like a lot of my friends to help me out with it. See, like on the cover, it's I'm the author, Ann T. Ning Tan, and friends. See that? And I realized I have like a lot of cool friends, and they know a lot of stuff, and so I kind of aggravated the information to prove a point that recovery is a team sport. So thanks everybody, really appreciate it. I would not be where I am today without the support of my friends. And here's the thing, I'm here because something really bad happened to me, and I realized that what happened did gain me entrance into a very exclusive club. And membership is defined by the survival of extreme medical trauma and or violent crime. And yeah, I know that's kind of hardcore, but that's my life now. Like, I totally get approached in public by strangers who are survivors of extreme medical trauma and or violent crime, and who will talk to me about it. But anyway, I just want to point out that this is a club that nobody wants to be a member of. But if you are given circumstances that qualify you for membership, I'm just saying, look around, make yourself comfortable, put your feet up, because you are in good company. And I also like to point out that we are all surviving something in this life, whether it's the rat race of the daily grind or elder care and just figuring everything out in general. However, even if you would not call yourself a survivor, you know one, or you will know one in the future. And this book will help you be a better advocate, and survivors need advocates. So please keep on listening and reading. And if you don't consider yourself a survivor, but you know one, there are so many ways to help. Here are just a few. You can make a meal. You can give me a ride. You can be my eyes. Like, sometimes, if my eyes are too tired or whatever, or I'm allergic to stuff, so David will read the fine print like on a medication bottle or like on the tube of lotion, and yeah, he's real nice like that. He'll help me do research because I can't read normally. You can hold my gait belt like Randy does. Oh, no, just kidding. Yeah, no, Randy has never held my gait belt because he won't let me wear a gait belt, but that's another story. But anyway, you know what I mean. If your friend is exercising at home, get a gait belt off of Amazon.com or just borrow somebody's belt in your house and hold it. Anyway, the next one is ask. Ask me if I want to come along. Like Matt, like Diane and her son took Matt skiing last year, and then I'm serious, Matt went like he went canoeing and like hiking, and then he went fishing. And he lives in Oregon, and Oregon's really beautiful, and I was just so glad to see him doing those things. And like a friend of Marlene's asked her, "Hey, do you want to do a 5K?" Marlene's in a wheelchair, I would like you to remember, but the friend asked anyway. And Marlene was like, absolutely. And she brought her trike and they had a great time. So, yeah, go ahead and ask if you want to come. Like, we love to be included. Thank you for thinking of us. And the final thing is make me laugh. That just means encourage me. Make me laugh. And you can write a card, you can tell me a story, text me. Don't phone call me. Sorry. Maybe you can call like Matt and Marlene, but like don't call me. Text me instead, okay? Thank you. Okay, the bottom line to all this is that I want a survivor to know that yeah, you're not alone. Because if something bad happens to you, you can feel so isolated. You're going to sit there in your room and you're going to think that you're the only one. Because it's not without good reason, because, in that experience, you're the only one who saw those things. You're the only one that remembers those things. And yeah, that's a lonely and very isolating thought. And so, the concept of you are not alone, the person who taught me that is Matt Hankey. And hopefully you are familiar with Matt. He is my friend the skateboarder with that amazing logo. P.S. That's actually a silhouette of him when he was like 13. He had an AVM rupture when he was 16. He's still in a power chair. He's 22 now, and we spent the last year fundraising, and he's training really hard. We fundraised to get him into pool therapy with Diane, the pool ninja, and he is making phenomenal progress. I mean, it's just such a privilege to be able to watch this. But I I wanted to help him because I told him some stuff about like my time in the valley. That's my code for the valley of the shadow of death. When I was asleep for over a month and I had all these dreams, and I told them some stuff that I had wished that I could forget and that I felt guilty about, etc., and I had hidden it. And he just wrote me back very simply. He just said, "Hey, you're not the only one that remembers. You're not alone here." And I said, okay. After I cried a bit, I was like, yeah, he just told me you're not alone. And so then I said to myself, yeah, well, you know what? You're not alone either, buddy. So I convinced him, or I badgered him into launching the original ShreddedGrace with me. So if you want to go help Matt walk again, go to ShreddedGrace.com and click on the magic wand. Before we go any further, I should point out that none of this is meant to be medical advice. And I am not a doctor. The reason why I'm talking to you is because it took 7 years. And, at first I named my company and all my books and everything, Learning How. But I've been recovering for almost 7 years, and it's become apparent that Learning How has grown into Shredded Grace. And I'm not a doctor, but these are my credentials. And I have a further disclaimer. My daddy first let me start doing things only if I was really clear about this stuff. So I'm just going to read it. I am disabled, although you might not be able to tell if you're just talking to me or reading what I write. Please remember that I have significant physical limitations, and help me remember too, because sometimes I get too excited about this sort of stuff. And if my symptoms flare up, I have to scale back, and I hate scaling back. P.S. I should also tell you that I have PTSD. So the big question on everybody's mind, if you're sitting in a wheelchair and wondering, should I pursue more, pursue mobility more. The question is it worth it? And my answer is obviously a resounding yes. However, we'll get more into it in chapter 3 about like the questions about like, why walking is scary and crazy, but you should do it anyway. And if you have a reasonable answer for all of my points, I'm not going to fuss with you. You're the only one who can make that decision for yourself. And, hey, bottom line, I won't fuss with you. However, I am just going to say, when you ask, is it worth it? That begs the question, well, what are you worth? And, my point to Matt and my point to all, mobility seekers is, what, your personal value is wholly independent of any physical achievement you may or may not see in the future. Like with Matt, I was like, dude, Matt, if you never walked again, I would still want to be your friend because you make me laugh. That kid is hysterical. I mean, I know he's not a kid technically anymore, but I just call him a kid. Anyway, yeah, it's independent of your physical achievement that you may or may not see in the future, but I will say that mobility is a privilege not granted to everybody. And if you have an opportunity to pursue it, use it up. I would also like to point out that you cannot succeed unless you actually begin. So if you're sitting there and you're wondering, okay, what do I do now? This is what to expect in this series. If you read the book, this is the table of contents. Number 1, introduction, welcome to the club, which is what we're doing today. Number 2 is the big question you have to answer before you can do any work of recovery. Is it okay that you lived? Decision day with Ruth. Number 3, there's no crying in baseball. Why walking is scary, but you should do it anyway. Number 4, how to cultivate survivor grit with Matt Hankey. Number 5, the problem of pain and my favorite pain relief products. Number 6, best foot forward, how to use a medical resume and essentially get the best care possible with the least amount of effort. Number 7, I'll fly away, mental health issues with my friend Marlene. 8, the power of possibility, a practitioner pep talk with Coach Randy. 9, how to find help with trainer David. 10, why survivors have body image issues with Jessica Smurfette, RD. 11, the measure of success, that's like metrics and stuff with Matt Hankey. 12, the Bossy and Sassy Show, how to choose a medical ID with Megan. 13, what to do if someone you love is asleep in the hospital. 14, how to be a champion. So, there will also actually be exercise videos with trainer David. And the goal here is absolutely not to teach you how to walk, but it's to simply get you more comfortable on your feet. That man actually one day, very early on in our training, I was on a treadmill and he hemmed me in with a resistance band so I wouldn't fall out. And I was still getting more I was still nervous about it, and he just said very quietly to me, he just said, you have legs. You have to start believing that they're going to hold you up. Wow, I almost cried just then. Sorry, I'm such a sissy. Don't tell anybody. So there are things like that I want him to show us, like how to stand up, how to do weight shifting, weight bear balance, simple balance things that you can practice safely in your home. I found those things to be more helpful to me in transitioning from wheelchair life to a primarily standing lifestyle, which is a huge transition, by the way. I found those things to be way more helpful than looking up, doing wheelchair aerobics or wheelchair tai chi or wheelchair yoga. I mean, you can find all sorts of wheelchair exercise resources, but specifically, I want David to show us how to do some of the simpler mobility things. And there are going to be other tutorials that are to be decided. Like, I'm trying to convince Coach Randy to do some life skills tutorials with me. He didn't say no, which I think means that he might be on board. Well, actually, Trainer Mark definitely said yes, so at least we have him. Okay, so I just want to spend a few minutes talking directly to survivors. If you are watching this video or are reading the book from your hospital bed, I just want to congratulate you on the fact that you can read, because that in itself is quite a triumph. Also, the fact that you are thinking of what to do next is a very good sign. So I just wanted to, before we begin, lay out 5 ground rules for survivors. Number 1 is do not compare. We do not compare the level of our trauma, what we've survived, how much we've suffered, the nature of our recoveries. We don't compare because that's just a thankless job. It's going to make you miserable. I didn't understand this at first. I was just really annoyed because the guy who got here after me went home before me, and I was like, dude, they said I had a stroke too. Why is this? Because I didn't understand. But yeah, we're not supposed to compare. That includes comparing with me or anybody else you see online. So, disclaimer again, there has been a huge amount of divine intervention in my recovery. So yeah, please don't compare with me or anybody else. The point of this book, however, is that you're reading it so that you get ideas on what to do so that you can go ahead and write your own story. Okay, number 2, do not elope. Now, to elope is to escape from the hospital. One of my old hospitals keeps a big 3-ring binder on the front desk that's called the elopement log. And I asked them one day, I was like, wow, do you seriously need a book that big? And they were like, absolutely. Every single day, people try to shuffle and wheel themselves out those doors, and then they write you down. So if you are thinking of trying to escape from the hospital, don't do it, because they know how to look out for people like us. And then there are going to be consequences. Okay, there will be consequences because after you have branded yourself as a troublemaker through your misguided bid for freedom, they're going to keep a closer watch on you. So yeah, that's something that you don't want to have to bring upon yourself. The only successful story of elopement I heard of was of an elderly gentleman who was so confused. He ripped off his tracking bracelet at the hospital and like threw it in the trash so they couldn't track him. And he wheeled his wheelchair 8 miles, I kid you not, 8 miles to his house. And his wife was the one who actually called the hospital, like, isn't he supposed to be with you? Because she found him like tapping on the window outside their house. So, while officially I do not condone this behavior, I'm just saying 8 miles? Wow. Sir, I salute you. Number 3, express appreciation and awareness. So a lot of people in the hospital, they're like upset because obviously they just got sick in a life-altering way, and they're like mean to nurses and CNAs. Like verbally, they're very mean. They yell at them, like they throw stuff. And so set yourself apart if you can talk, by saying thank you. And, people notice that about me right away. They notice that about Megan. Like, we were always very polite. It helps people want to care for you if you're nice to them. So definitely say thank you if you can. The other thing is express awareness. As soon as you are able to be awake enough, and if you can talk, let them know that you're watching what they're doing around you. We all know that bad stuff can happen, and if you're alone in the hospital, you are especially vulnerable. So like as soon as I woke up and I could say stuff, I would ask questions. I'd be like, why are you taking my blood? Because I didn't care. It didn't matter. Whatever. But my point was, this is my body, and I'm awake now, and I know what you're doing, and I would like you to know that I know what you're doing. So don't think anyway. You get the idea. So yeah, express awareness, and I'll get more into this in chapter 13 when somebody you love is asleep in the hospital. But if your person is unable to communicate, it is crucial for family and friends to make their presence known in the hospital. Everybody, you need to show up, and by your visits and by your mere presence, yeah, be nice to the people, be nice to them, but also let them know that you're watching how your loved one is being cared for, and that you will require a very high standard of care. That's crucial. Make your presence known. Okay, number 4, learn. So I was really bad at this at first because I woke up and I felt cognitively intact. I felt there was no time lapse in my head. I had no idea what was going on. I was very annoyed. I just said to myself, okay. I looked around me and I was like, you guys, please, this is the stupidest story I've ever heard. It's like a very badly written script for a made-for-TV movie. Whoever wrote this should be fired. And P.S., Cognitively, I could run circles around all y'all any day, including today. So, yeah, that was not a good baseline attitude because it really held me back for a few weeks. Well, I thought that because I wasn't really paying a whole lot of attention. I was just being annoyed in therapy. But when I figured out that my therapist had specialized knowledge that I needed to know, you know, like about how to like do stuff safely in this new body, once I figured that out and I started actually learning from them, it was like America. Seriously, my progress was just skyrocketed. So yeah, don't do what I did. Just go ahead and learn. Number 5, keep the walker on the floor. That's a quote from Andrew, my poor long-suffering PT. He was in charge of me soon after I woke up, well, right after I woke up. And he was trying to teach me the basics of like wheelchair and walker usage so I could go home. Because I had said the goal is for me to go home like ASAP because I don't want to be here. So he was like, okay, we'll teach you the minimum really fast. So he's trying to teach me how to use a walker. And so he's like, okay, so you keep the walker on the floor. So while I was still adjusting to him, I was like, hold the phone. Wait a second here. I was like, okay, so you, being a completely able-bodied man, want to talk to me about how to use this walker? I was like, yeah, that's actually not going to work out for me because if we come to a corner and I feel like picking the walker up, I'm going to pick it up because I'm going where I'm fixing to go. So, yeah. That I include this example simply because I'm saying that the basics did not come intuitively to me. These people have been specially trained to help you, do these movements and use assistive devices, etc., in a safe way. So go ahead and listen to what they're saying. And so now the next time we meet, we have to start at obviously the starting point. The big question is it okay that you lived? And I call that decision day, and that's going to be with my friend Ruth. So I'll see you around March 15th. I need a couple of weeks I got some other stuff to do. Anyway, so there are different ways to engage. You can go to ShreddedGrace.com, click on media. There's pictures, videos, the blog, and the podcast. You can always find the latest videos on there, but they're also on YouTube. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at ShreddedGrace, and all my books, they're always nonprofit, and they're also always available at Amazon.com. So thanks, everybody. I'll see you in a couple weeks.